I walked inside and saw my whole family sitting together on the sofa. My husband, my mother, my son, and my own sister. "What's going on?" I asked, already scared something was wrong. "Mom, sit down," my son said. "You need to accept a new reality. You're no longer in charge of this family." "Aunt Brittany, she makes Dad happier now," he added. My whole body burned with anger. They all knew. They were all part of it. I walked out of the room without saying a single word. The next day, I woke up to 118 missed calls. "Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I start my story, please tell me which city you're watching from in the comments below. Now let me take you into this story." The cold wind blowing across the tarmac at Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson International Airport was sharp that night, the kind of cold that cuts straight through your clothes. I had just returned from 3 exhausting days in New York City, where I saved a business deal my husband, Jonathan, almost destroyed with his arrogance. I was completely worn out. My eyes burned from little sleep, and the weight of my laptop bag made my shoulders ache. All I wanted was a hot shower, a glass of red wine, and the peace of my home. I wanted to tell Jonathan I had fixed everything. Pierce Ridge Realty, the real estate empire we built for 22 years, was safe again. When I pulled into our driveway in Buckhead, I noticed the living room lights were on, shining brightly over the cold, frosty lawn. That was strange. By 10 p.m., the house was usually quiet. Jonathan would be in his study, and our 21-year-old son Ethan would be in his room or somewhere with his friends. I opened the front door and dropped my keys into the bowl on the console table. The silence inside was heavy, not calm but tense. It felt like the air right before a big storm. "Hello?" I called out while removing my coat. "Jonathan? Ethan? I'm home." "Olivia, we're in the living room." My mother's voice answered from the great room. My stomach knotted. My mother, Margaret, lived 40 minutes away. What was she doing here so late on a Tuesday night? A sudden fear hit me. Did something happen to my sister Brittany? Was someone sick? I rushed into the living room, my heart pounding hard. But it wasn't an emergency. It was a courtroom. They were all seated like a jury on the designer leather sofa I picked last Christmas. Jonathan sat in the middle, looking neat in his white shirt, but he refused to meet my eyes. To his left sat my mother, stiff and formal with her hands clasped tightly. On his right was my younger sister Brittany, and in the armchair beside them sat my son Ethan. The atmosphere felt suffocating. No one was crying. No one looked sad. They looked settled, like people who had already made up their minds. "What is going on?" I asked again, breath shaky. "Is everyone okay, Mom?" I took one step forward, but Ethan suddenly stood up. Not to hug me, not to greet me. He stood like a bouncer blocking a door. His eyes were empty, nothing like the boy I raised. "Mom, sit down," he said coldly. "You need to listen. Don't cause a scene." "Ethan, you're scaring me. What is this?" "You have to accept a new reality," he said like he was reciting a script. "You're not in charge of this family anymore." I turned to Jonathan. "Jonathan, why aren't you saying anything?" Jonathan finally looked at me. The face that had been the charming image of our company for decades now looked annoyed and pitying. "It's over, Olivia," he said. "The farce is over." "What farce?" I felt like the floor was disappearing under me. "Aunt Brittany," Ethan said, pointing at my sister. "She makes Dad happier than you ever did. She understands him." Time stopped. I looked at Brittany. My little sister, the same sister whose rent I paid for 6 years, the sister I gave a job when no one else would hire her. She sat cross-legged, wearing a silk blouse that looked exactly like one missing from my closet. Then I saw it. Jonathan's hand was resting on her knee, casually, confidently, possessively. "We didn't want you finding out from someone else," my mother interrupted. Her voice wasn't sorry, it was judgmental, like she was scolding me. "We decided to do this as a family." "Mom, you knew," I whispered, feeling the pain stabbing deeper. "I'm supporting happiness," she said proudly. "Brittany and Jonathan have a real connection. They love each other. It wasn't planned, but it happened. You can't punish people for falling in love." I stared at Brittany. She gave me a smug smile, tucked her hair behind her ear, and looked down. Then I saw the ring. A diamond ring. My ring. The antique Art Deco diamond Jonathan gave me for our 20th anniversary. The ring that went missing 6 months ago. I had cried for days searching for it. Jonathan told me I probably lost it at the gym. That's my ring, I said, my voice shaking with anger. It looks better on her, Jonathan said with a shrug. It was wasted on you. You don't even wear jewelry. We want you to move out, Ethan added. Dad is keeping the house. I'm staying here. You create too much tension. My own son, the child I raised, the child I worked myself to death for, was throwing me out of my own home. You're choosing this? I asked him, tears finally burning my eyes. Your father cheated on me with your aunt. That's your aunt, Ethan. She's not just my aunt anymore, he snapped. She listens to me. You only throw money at me and tell me to study. Dad and Brittany treat me like an adult. I looked at all 4 of them, my husband, my sister, my mother, my son. The 4 people I loved most, each one of them rotten to the core. They weren't just breaking my heart. They were destroying my entire existence. I swallowed the nausea rising in my throat. I refused to collapse. I refused to cry in front of them. I stood tall. I looked Jonathan straight in the eyes until he looked away. You think you've won? I said quietly. You think you can rewrite history because you're bored and selfish? Don't make a scene, Olivia, Brittany said, sugar-coated and smug. Let's be mature about the divorce. Divorce. I laughed. A dry, bitter laugh. You have no idea what's coming. Don't threaten us, Jonathan snapped. The lawyers know everything already. You're finished. The prenup, the company bylaws, it's all covered. Leave. If you don't, I'll have security throw you out of my house. Your house? I looked around. I picked every tile in here. I paid for every brick. And now you're trespassing, Ethan said coldly. That broke something inside me forever. I gave Ethan one last look, memorizing the stranger standing before me. All right, I said simply. I turned and walked toward the door. I didn't take my coat. I didn't take my keys. I had my spare set in my pocket anyway. Where are you going? My mother called after me, suddenly panicking. Olivia, we need to talk about the settlement. Jonathan has a generous offer if you sign tonight. I didn't respond. I opened the heavy oak door and stepped out into the freezing Atlanta night. The cold wind dried my tears before they could fall. I got into my car. The engine started. As I reversed out of the driveway, I looked through the window. They were pouring champagne, celebrating my removal. I drove off into the darkness, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I didn't know where I was going, but one thing was clear. The Olivia they knew, the doormat, the fixer, the provider, died in that living room. And the woman driving away was someone they should fear. If you're listening to this and you feel even half the anger I felt in that moment, hit the like button and comment 1 below. Show me I'm not alone. Comment 1 now, because trust me, what they did next makes this look like the warm-up. I drove for an hour, the city lights streaking across my windshield. My mind was a storm, Brittany's smirk, the ring, Ethan's cold eyes. But under the shock, something stronger was rising. Survival. I needed fuel. The low fuel light had been blinking since I left the airport. I pulled into a 24-hour gas station off I-285. My hands shook as I got out in the freezing air. I slid my platinum credit card into the pump. The one linked to our joint account, the card I used for everything. Processing. Processing. Denied. See attendant. What? Impossible. The limit was $50,000. I paid it in full 3 days ago. I tried again. Denied. A cold fear hit me in the stomach. I pulled out my personal debit card. Still shaking, I went inside the store to buy a bottle of water and gum, just so I could use the card to pay for gas. I tried to swipe. Declined. The clerk said without looking up. Try again, I snapped. There's money in it. He sighed and tried again. Declined again. Either no funds or the bank blocked it. Got cash. 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 My ears rang. I grabbed my phone to check my bank app. Access denied. Authentication failed. Please contact branch. I tried the business account. Denied. The joint savings. Denied. Jonathan hadn't just kicked me out. He had shut down every account tied to me. He had prepared this. He had told the bank something, fraud, security risk, days before. He wanted me desperate. He wanted me scared. He wanted me broke enough to crawl back and sign whatever generous offer my mother mentioned. Panicking, I searched my bag and found only 3 crumpled $20 bills and some loose change. $60. My entire net worth now. I paid for $20 worth of gas and walked back to my car shaking. Not just from cold, but from terror. I couldn't go to a hotel, no card for the deposit. I couldn't go to my mother's house, or Brittany's, or anywhere. I kept driving until I found a rundown roadside motel with a flickering neon vacancy sign. Prepaid, the manager said through a thick safety glass. $50. I gave him $50 from my last $60. He handed me a key. Room 12. Inside, the room was freezing. The heater rattled and the air smelled like burnt dust. I sat on the sunken mattress still wearing my business suit and coat. My phone buzzed with more notifications. Not apologies, not love, just emails. Marriage dissolution agreement. NDA required. Termination notice. Pierce Ridge Realty. I opened the termination notice first. Fired. For corporate espionage and gross negligence. I laughed bitterly. Espionage? Negligence? I was the one who kept that company alive. Jonathan couldn't even convert a PDF by himself. Then a text from Ethan came in. Mom, don't make this harder. Dad says he'll cut my tuition and trust fund if you fight the divorce. He promised me the VP role next year if I support him. You taught me to be ambitious. I'm doing what you taught me. I dropped my phone. That text erased whatever was left of the old Olivia. Jonathan hadn't just taken my money and my job. He had bought my son. I curled up on the bed and cried. Cried for the son I raised, the sister I protected, the husband I believed in. But as the night grew longer and my tears dried up, something else grew inside me. Something cold, something hard. They thought they erased me. They thought locking me out of accounts meant locking me out of power. But they forgot one thing. I built everything they are sitting on. I designed the systems. I wrote the contracts. I know every loophole. And while Jonathan stole my house keys, the architect always has a back door. Lying there on that dirty motel bed, listening to highway noise, I realized I wasn't Olivia the wife anymore. Or Olivia the mother. Or Olivia the fixer. I was Olivia the architect. And I was going to tear their kingdom down. Honey, we need to talk about that money you've saved. Your college fund. My mom's voice was calm, almost sweet. Well, Brittany has been discovered, she continued. There's a modeling contest in Miami next month. It could be her big break. But the entrance fees, the trip, the photo shoots, it's all very expensive. My heart dropped. Mom, that's my tuition money, I said. I worked for that. How selfish you are, Olivia, she snapped. Brittany jumped in, blowing on her freshly painted nails. You just don't want me to become famous, she said. When I'm rich, I'll buy you a car, my mother added, using that tone I knew too well. The one that mixed guilt and orders together. You're the strong one. You're smart. You can always figure things out. You can work another year, take night classes. But Brittany, she's delicate. This is her dream. You don't want to crush your sister's dream, do you? Families sacrifice for each other. I gave them the money. Of course I did. For 18 years, I had been trained to believe my only value was in what I could do and give. I was the worker, the mule, the fixer. Brittany was the golden child, the star, the one who deserved to shine. Brittany went to Miami. She didn't get hired. She blew the money on clothes and theme parks. I spent the next year working double shifts at a restaurant to earn my college money again. I started college a year late, exhausted but still determined. That pattern never changed. It just evolved. When I graduated at the top of my class, my mother didn't come to the ceremony because Brittany was having severe anxiety over a 2-week breakup with her boyfriend. I walked across the stage alone. When I got my first big promotion at a financial consulting firm, my mother said, "That's great, honey. Hey, can you loan Brittany $2,000? Her landlord is being awful. I paid Brittany's rent. I paid for her car repairs. I paid for her acting classes, which she never even attended. I bought my mother a condo so she wouldn't have to climb stairs anymore. I thought I was buying their love. I thought if I worked hard enough, gave enough, fixed enough, they would finally look at me the way they looked at Brittany. I thought one day my mother would look me in the eyes and say, "I'm so proud of you, Olivia. You are my joy." But I was never her joy. I was her light bill. I was her backup plan. I was her safety net. And then I met Jonathan. He was charming and ambitious, and he seemed to see me. He told me I was brilliant. He told me I was beautiful. I didn't realize back then that the look in his eyes was just like my mother's, always calculating. He didn't see a soulmate. He saw a host. He saw a woman trained to give everything and ask for nothing. He fit perfectly into the empty space in my heart that my mother and sister had carved out. I married him, thinking I was building a new family, a better family. Lying there in that dark motel room, the truth hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't escaped my family dynamic by marrying Jonathan. I had recreated it. Jonathan was the golden child, demanding attention, admiration, and resources. I was still the workhorse, working behind the scenes to keep everything running. And Brittany was the final piece of the puzzle. The two parasites in my life had finally found each other. "You're the strong one, Olivia," my mother's voice echoed in my head. Well, she was right about one thing. I was strong enough to carry them all for 40 years. And now God help them. I was strong enough to let go. I sat up on the bed. The old metal springs squeaked beneath me. I wasn't going to cry anymore. The sadness was gone. In its place was something cold and sharp, a clear, focused calm. They wanted delicate, fragile Brittany. They wanted dreamy, spoiled Jonathan. Fine. They could have each other. But they were not going to have my money. They were not going to have my company. I picked up my laptop bag. It was time to stop being the sacrificial daughter. It was time to act like the CEO who cuts off toxic assets. Morning light slipped through the motel's dirty curtains, painting long dusty shadows on the floor. I opened my laptop. Thankfully, I had a portable Wi-Fi hotspot in my bag, a habit from years of business travel. Jonathan couldn't shut down a device he didn't even know existed. I didn't bother trying to log into the regular bank accounts. I knew those doors were locked. Instead, I opened a file named sr_file_1. To understand how I was going to destroy Jonathan, you have to understand how I built him. I met Jonathan 22 years ago at a real estate networking event in downtown Atlanta. He was 29, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit, holding a cheap glass of wine and entertaining a group of investors around him. He was electric. He had a smile that could sell ice to an Eskimo. A laugh that made you feel like you were hilarious just for standing near him. I was 25, a junior analyst at one of the big consulting firms, standing alone in a corner clutching a binder full of market research. I watched him work the room. He was charming, yes, but I could also hear what he was actually saying. He was throwing around jargon, making promises about returns that were mathematically impossible. He eventually cornered me at the buffet table. "Looks like you're analyzing the structural integrity of the shrimp skewers," he joked. "No," I replied with a small smile. "I'm analyzing your pitch to those investors. You're promising 15% returns on a property in a declining area. You're going to lose them their money." He blinked in surprise, then laughed. "Okay, you got me. I'm a big ideas guy, not a numbers guy. I need someone who understands all that boring stuff." "The boring stuff is what keeps you out of jail," I said dryly. He fell in love with me. Or at least, he fell in love with what I could do for him, right there. Within 6 months, we were married. Within a year, we founded Pierce Ridge Realty. The division of labor was clear immediately. Jonathan was the face, the CEO. He handled clients, went golfing with developers, gave interviews to the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. He loved the spotlight. He loved the title. I was the architect, the COO. But in reality, I was everything else. I found the properties. I negotiated the loans. I managed the contractors. I fought with the city over zoning. I handled taxes, payroll, legal compliance, all of it. Our first big project was a disaster waiting to happen. Jonathan bought a rundown warehouse in South Atlanta, convinced it would become the next trendy loft building. He paid $500,000. Way too much. The contractor he hired ran off with the deposit. We were almost bankrupt before we sold a single unit. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, pregnant with Ethan, staring at red numbers on the ledger. Jonathan paced the room, sweating and panicking. "We're finished, Olivia. My reputation is ruined. I'm going to get sued," he said. "Sit down," I told him. I took my grandmother's jewelry, the only inheritance I had that my mother and Brittany hadn't got their hands on, and sold it. I cashed out my retirement fund. I went back to the bank and renegotiated our terms with a business plan so detailed and solid that the manager told me it was the best he'd ever seen. I fired Jonathan's friend, who had been acting as project manager, and took over myself. Walking the construction site every day with a hard hat and a 6-month belly. We finished the project. We sold all the units in 3 weeks. Jonathan was celebrated in the business press. "Jonathan Pierce, the new king of lofts," the headline read. He brought the magazine home, smiling from ear to ear. "Look at this baby. We did it," he said. He didn't mention me once in the interview. When I gently pointed that out, he kissed my forehead. "Honey, you know how the media is. They like a simple story. And you hate the spotlight anyway. You're my secret weapon, the power behind the throne." I accepted it. I told myself it was for the family. I told myself as long as the company was successful, it didn't matter whose face was in the photos. I was a fool for 20 years. I built the stage. I set the lights. I wrote the script. Jonathan just stepped out and took the applause. The company grew. We expanded into commercial properties, luxury condos, mixed-use developments. We became worth millions. But the structure of the company, that was my masterpiece. Jonathan hated details. He hated reading contracts. He hated passwords. "You fix it, Olivia," was his favorite line. So I built the digital systems. I created a network of LLCs to protect us legally. I set up automated transfers. And because Jonathan was paranoid about employees stealing, he insisted on a special internal server. Highly encrypted, local only, for our most sensitive financial data. He wanted a secret ghost access, a master administrator login that could bypass everything in case we were ever locked out or blackmailed by IT. "Only you and I will know the ghost access," he said. But Jonathan never bothered to memorize the 64-character login I created. He wrote it down on a sticky note, kept it in his desk for a week, then tossed it, assuming I would always be there to type it in for him. He was right. I was always there. Until yesterday. Now, sitting in that motel room, I stared at the login screen for the private Pierce Ridge server. The VPN connection was secure. Jonathan thought that by removing me from the bank accounts and firing me through HR, he had cut off my access to everything. He trusted their rules. He trusted the front door. He forgot about the ghost door. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed in the string. It was a line from a poem I loved, combined with the GPS coordinates of our first building and the date Ethan lost his first tooth. Jonathan didn't know any of those things. Authenticating. Access granted. Administrator level. The screen filled with data. The entire nervous system of Pierce Ridge lay open in front of me. Emails, wire transfers, ledgers, tax documents, private chats. I wasn't just looking at a company. I was looking at the crime scene of my marriage. I started downloading. I didn't want a few screenshots. I wanted everything. Every email Jonathan sent in the last 5 years, every expense report, every wire to the Cayman Islands or Switzerland. And that's when I saw it. A folder named Project B. It wasn't a building project. The B stood for Brittany. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. This wasn't just an affair. This was massive theft. Date after date. Amount after amount. Receipts. January 12th. $50,000 transfer to Brittany Consulting LLC. Under her maiden name. February 14th. $12,000 at Tiffany & Company. March 1st. $4,500 monthly rent for a luxury suite at the St. Regis. Jonathan had been keeping Brittany like a kept woman with company money for 3 years. But it went even further. I found transfers to a shell company I had never heard of, Orion Holdings Group. The authorized signatory wasn't Jonathan. It was Brittany. And the assets being moved weren't just cash. They were property deeds. Jonathan was quietly moving titles of our most valuable, debt-free properties into a company owned by my sister. He was slowly hollowing out Pierce Ridge so that when he left me, I'd be standing in an empty shell while he and Brittany walked away with the real wealth. I felt physically sick. This wasn't just replacing me as a wife. This was grand larceny. But as I dug deeper, something else happened. I started to smile, a cold, slow smile. Jonathan was an actor, not an architect. He didn't understand what he was signing. And in his arrogance and Brittany's greed, they had made mistakes. Stupid, basic mistakes. They had forged my signature on the deed transfers. I zoomed in on the PDFs. My signature was just a clumsy copy-paste from an older document. Even better, in the operating agreement for Orion Holdings Group, Brittany had listed her permanent address. My address. The house I paid for. I had them. I had them completely. But I couldn't move yet. If I ran to the police now, Jonathan would act innocent and claim it was a mistake. He'd pay a fine and use his expensive lawyers to bury me for years. He had money for battles. I had $10. I didn't need them to just hang themselves. I needed them to relax, to feel safe, to think I was broken and gone. I closed the laptop. I had the blueprint for their destruction. Now I just needed to build the trap. The evidence from Project B burned in my mind, pushing me back to the moment Brittany slipped fully into my life again. It started 5 years ago, when Pierce Ridge was booming and my guard was down. Brittany had just gone through her 3rd divorce. Her ex-husband, a decent mechanic named Derek, left her because she refused to work and spent all his money on designer bags. She arrived at my doorstep with 2 suitcases and a dramatic story that could win an award. "He was abusive, Olivia," she sobbed, throwing herself into my arms. Later, I found out abusive meant he'd cut off her credit card. "I have nowhere to go. Mom said you would help me." 10 minutes later, Margaret called. "Olivia, you have that big house with all those empty guest rooms. Let your sister stay for a few weeks. She just needs time to heal. Family helps family." I agreed. I always agreed. 1 week turned into 6 months. Brittany spent her days by my pool, drinking my wine and criticizing my landscapers. Jonathan seemed annoyed at first. "She's a leech, Olivia," he said. "She treats our house like a hotel." I defended her. "She's grieving, Jonathan. Give her time." Then came the job request. "I need a job," Brittany announced one night at dinner. "I'm bored. I want to work with you guys." I almost choked. "Brittany, we run a commercial real estate firm," I said. "It's high pressure." "What exactly can you do there?" "I'm good with people," she insisted. "I can handle clients, events, parties. I can talk to investors. You two are so serious. You need someone fun." "No," I said. It was one of the few times I actually put my foot down. But Margaret stepped in again. She drove 40 minutes just to convince me. "Olivia, this is Brittany's chance to finally be responsible. If you don't give her a job, she'll just drift. Do you want her living on your sofa forever? Give her a salary. Let her move out. Jonathan thinks it's a good idea." "Jonathan?" I asked. "I talked to him," she said smoothly. "He thinks Brittany could soften the company image. You know you can be a little intense, honey." I confronted Jonathan. "You want to hire Brittany?" Jonathan shrugged. "Your mom's right. We need someone for the social stuff, galas, charity events. You hate all that. Let her do it. Pay her like an assistant. Get her out of the house. Everyone wins." So I did. I created a role, Director of Special Events. At first it seemed okay. Brittany moved into an apartment I helped pay for and organized the company Christmas party. It was over the budget but successful. Then things started to shift. Brittany began coming into the office daily wearing tight dresses that were barely appropriate for work. She spent hours in Jonathan's office, talking about events. When I walked by, I'd hear them laughing. Whenever I walked in, they would go quiet. "What's so funny?" I'd ask, feeling that sharp little stab in my gut. "Oh, just a joke about a client," Brittany would say, smiling. "You wouldn't get it. It's an inside joke." She started joining us for business lunches. Then slowly, she started replacing me. "Olivia, stay and finish the quarterly projections," Jonathan would say. "Brittany and I will take the developers out. You know you hate small talk." And it was true. I did hate small talk. I loved the work. So I stayed. I sat at my desk with a sad little salad, running numbers while my husband and sister drank martinis and enjoyed themselves. I noticed Jonathan changing. He started dressing younger. He bought a Porsche. He networked late into the night. Whenever I expressed concern, Margaret made me feel crazy. "You're being paranoid, Olivia," she scolded. "You should be happy your husband and sister get along. Most men hate their in-laws. It's a blessing. Don't ruin it with jealousy. That's beneath you." Jealousy. She made me feel like I was some insecure, hysterical wife. But now, looking at the Project B folder on my laptop, the truth was clear. Those networking dinners were dates. Those business trips to Miami were vacations. Those consulting fees to Brittany were her allowance as his mistress. The snake hadn't just crept into the garden. I had opened the door, invited her in, and tucked her into a warm bed. And worst of all, my mother had held the door open. Margaret had orchestrated all this. She pushed Brittany toward Jonathan, fully aware of the kind of person Brittany was. She wanted Brittany to have the life I built, because in her twisted mind, Brittany deserved the kingdom, and I was just the builder, meant to erect the palace and walk away. I slammed my hand against the cheap motel desk. The sharp pain grounded me. "Okay," I whispered into the empty room. "You want to play reckless? Let's see how fun it is when the architect pulls out the load-bearing wall." I spent the next 6 hours in a fog of forensic accounting. The ghost access gave me everything, but I had to move carefully. If I changed even one file, the system logs might alert the IT director, Kelvin, a man who used to be loyal to me, but who now surely answered to Jonathan. So I moved like a ghost. I copied. I downloaded. I took screenshots. I traced the flow of money. It was worse than I thought. Pierce Ridge Realty was bleeding money to fund their lifestyle and to fill Brittany's shell company. Jonathan had stopped paying some of our vendors. We were 3 months behind with the construction crews building our new skyscraper in the financial district. We'd already defaulted on interest payments on 2 major loans. Jonathan was robbing Peter to pay Brittany. My company, my life's work, was now a house of cards. If the creditors realized what was happening, we would be broke in 30 days. Then I found something that made me shoot upright in my chair. An email chain between Jonathan and a private investigator, Pierce Investigations. Dated 2 years ago. Subject, surveillance. Target, S. Bennett. Jonathan. I need dirt. Anything. Cheating, addiction, mental instability. I need a reason to void the prenup. Pierce. We followed her for 6 months. She goes to work. She goes to the grocery store. She visits her mother. She works late. There's nothing. She's clean. The woman is a saint. Jonathan. Then look harder or make something up. I can't afford to give her half. I stopped breathing. 2 years. He had been trying to get rid of me for 2 years, but couldn't find a way to do it without losing money. Then there was a more recent email, from 1 week ago. Pierce. Forget digging up dirt. We'll use the mental breakdown angle. Her family will testify. Her mother and sister have agreed. We'll say she's overworked, paranoid, unfit to lead. We'll push the board to vote her out. Once she's removed, we activate the buyout clause at the lowest valuation. Margaret. I can testify that she's been very emotional and unstable lately. I'm worried about her, Jonathan. We have to do what's best for the company. I stared at the screen as tears of rage blurred my vision. My own mother was planning to help them declare me mentally unstable, so her golden daughter could steal my husband and my money. You want unstable? I muttered. I'll show you unstable. I dug further. I needed something that would terrify Jonathan quickly, something big enough to crush his confidence and his reputation. I found it in the tax filings. Last year, to secure a huge loan from a private equity firm, Jonathan had lied about the occupancy rates of our commercial buildings. He'd faked lease agreements. He had literally forged signatures of tenants that didn't exist. This wasn't just shady. This was bank fraud, federal crime, prison time, and the documents were all signed. Jonathan Pierce, CEO. My signature was nowhere near them. I had been out of town for my aunt's funeral that week, a funeral Brittany didn't bother to attend. Jonathan said he'd handle the paperwork. He had signed his own death warrant and didn't even realize it. I copied the loan papers. I copied the fake leases. I built a file that was basically a nuclear bomb. I checked the time. It was 2 p.m. I had been working nonstop for 12 hours. I was starving, unshowered, and running on anger and adrenaline. I needed a burner phone. I couldn't use my regular phone. They were probably tracking it already or pulling the records. I walked to a nearby convenience store and bought a cheap prepaid phone with cash. Back in the room, I stared at the new phone. Who could I call? Friends. Most of our friends were couple friends. They'd remain neutral, or worse, believe Jonathan. Family? Obviously not. Employees? Too risky. I needed someone powerful. Someone who hated Jonathan. Someone who had the resources to go to war. One name came to mind, Thomas Ashford. Thomas was a billionaire real estate mogul in Atlanta. Old money. Ruthless but with a code. 3 years ago, Jonathan had beaten Thomas for a prime Beltline property. Jonathan only won because he secretly bribed a city councilman to rezone the land, something I strongly opposed, but he did it behind my back. Thomas suspected something shady and called Jonathan a cheap-suited climber in public. Jonathan laughed it off, but Thomas never forgot. If I went to Thomas with proof of Jonathan's fraud, especially the fraud tied to that Beltline deal, it might be my only shot. He might laugh. He might slam the door in my face. But he was the only person in Atlanta powerful enough to protect me from Jonathan's lawyers. I dialed the number for Ashford Enterprises. I knew it by heart. Ashford Enterprises, office of the chairman, a crisp voice said. I need to speak to Mr. Ashford immediately, I said. Mr. Ashford is in meetings. May I ask what this is regarding? Tell him it's Olivia Bennett, I replied. Tell him I know how Jonathan Pierce got the Beltline acquisition rezoned. And tell him I have the emails to prove it. There was a pause. 1 moment, please. 30 seconds later, a deep, rough voice came on the line. Mrs. Bennett, to what do I owe the pleasure? Did your husband send you to gloat? My husband just fired me, emptied my accounts, and moved his mistress into my house. I said, my voice steady. I'm not here to gloat, Mr. Ashford. I'm here to burn him to the ground. And I thought you might want to Britannic marshmallows. Silence. Then a low chuckle. I'm listening, he said. Before I met with Thomas Ashford, there was one more wound I had to cauterize. One more file I had been avoiding. Ethan's trust fund. Ethan was my weak spot. I had spent his whole life protecting him from Jonathan's narcissism. When Jonathan forgot his birthday, I bought the gift and signed it from Dad. When Jonathan missed his games, I told Ethan that Dad was working hard for the family. I built a fantasy version of Jonathan in my son's head. Now I saw how big my mistake was. By protecting Ethan from the truth, I had made it easier for Jonathan to buy his loyalty. I opened the trust documents. Jonathan had recently changed the terms. Originally, Ethan was supposed to get the funds at 25, and only if he graduated from college. The new terms, dated 2 weeks ago. Immediate access to $200,000 in cash, plus transfer of the title for the 2023 Porsche 911. The email chain attached made my stomach twist. Ethan. Dad, Mom is going to flip if I drop out next semester. Jonathan. Mom won't be in charge much longer, Jay. She treats you like a kid. I treat you like a man. You want the car? You want the cash? Just back me up when the time comes. Tell the lawyers she's been acting strange. Say she's unstable. Ethan. Well, she has been kind of stressed lately. Jonathan. Exactly. She's losing it. We have to protect the company. If you stick with me, I'll make you VP of Acquisitions next year. No degree needed. You can learn on the job like I did. Ethan. VP? Seriously? Oh, I'm in. What do I have to do? I read those words and my heart didn't just break, it turned to dust. VP of Acquisitions. Ethan was failing basic economics. He slept until noon, spent weekends gaming. He didn't have the discipline to manage a lemonade stand, let alone a department. Jonathan wasn't raising him. He was using him. And Ethan, my sweet boy, sold his mother out for a sports car and a fancy title. I remembered the text he sent me the night before. Dad says he'll cut my tuition. He wasn't worried about tuition. He was worried about losing easy money. I opened Ethan's credit card statement, the one I paid. Liquor store, nightclub, online betting site, strip club. He was going down a very bad road, and instead of parenting him, Jonathan was paying for that lifestyle just to buy his loyalty. I picked up my burner phone and hesitated. He was my son. But the boy who sat on that sofa and told me to accept reality wasn't the boy I raised. He was his father's product now. If I kept cushioning his fall, I would lose him completely to Jonathan's world of greed and fakery. The only way to truly save him was to let him hit rock bottom. I typed a text. I didn't send it. I just stared at the blinking cursor and read the words. Ethan, I saw the emails. I saw the car. You chose the easy way. But the easy way is a trap. When your father is done using you, he will throw you away just like he did me. I love you enough to let you learn this the hard way. Good luck, Mr. Vice President. I saved it as a draft. I wiped my eyes, took a deep breath, and opened the payroll system. I removed Ethan from the intern payroll he'd been on for 3 years, even though he never actually worked at the office. I couldn't touch his trust fund. Jonathan controlled that now. But I could touch the health insurance. Ethan was under my policy, the policy I paid for with my own money. I clicked. Remove dependent. Ethan Pierce. Reason, no longer a full-time student. It was small. It was petty. But it was the first time in 21 years that I didn't rush in to fix something for him. My phone buzzed. It was a message with the address for my meeting with Thomas Ashford. Peachtree Club, Library Lounge in 1 hour. Come alone. I closed the laptop and went to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, tried to smooth my hair. My suit was wrinkled, but I shook it out as best as I could. I put on a layer of lipstick, my armor. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired, yes. But she also looked dangerous. She looked like a mother who had lost her cubs and had nothing left to lose. You want instability, Jonathan? I told my reflection. I'll show you an earthquake. I walked into the Peachtree Club in the same wrinkled suit I had run out of my house in, carrying a laptop bag full of evidence that could send my husband to federal prison. The doorman looked me over like I didn't belong there. This place smelled like old money, old grudges, and polished wood, Thomas Ashford's world. I found him in the library lounge, sitting in a leather armchair and reading the Financial Times. He was around 65. With silver hair and eyes like sharp stone. He didn't stand up when I approached. Mrs. Bennett, Thomas said, folding his newspaper. You look terrible. I feel terrible, I replied, sinking into the chair across from him. But my brain is working perfectly. You mentioned the Beltline deal, Thomas said, getting straight to the point. You said you have proof. I opened my laptop. No small talk. I pulled up the file I had put together in the motel room and turned the screen toward him. 3 years ago, Jonathan beat you for that Beltline lot, I said. You suspected he bribed Councilman Davis. You were right. Thomas leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Here's the wire transfer, I said, pointing. $50,000 to a fake company called Davis Management. And here are the emails between Jonathan and Davis talking about the fast-track rezoning fee. Jonathan was sloppy. He even used his personal email at the beginning. Thomas studied the documents. His expression didn't change, but the air around him felt colder. Why show me this now, he asked. You were the COO. You benefited from that deal. I didn't know, I said, my voice steady. Jonathan kept a secret set of books. I found them last night, after he threw me out of my house, froze my accounts, and put my sister in my bed. Thomas looked up. A small flash of surprise crossed his face. And my mother is cheering them on, I added with a bitter laugh. It's a full family reunion, and I'm the only one not invited. I took a breath. Mr. Ashford, I'm not here to gossip. I'm here to make a deal. Jonathan is trying to destroy me. He forged my signature on fake loans. He's stealing company money. He's going to leave Pierce Ridge Realty as a burning wreck. Do you want me to save it? Thomas raised an eyebrow. I want you to help me bury him, I said. And in return, I'll give you the Beltline property. Go on, Thomas said. Jonathan is overleveraged, I continued. He's short on cash. He's about to default on construction loans. If you step in now as a white knight investor and offer a bridge loan to save the project, he'll accept. He's desperate. And in that loan agreement, we add a guarantee clause. When he defaults, which he will because I know the real numbers, you get the assets, especially the Beltline deed. Thomas stared at me for a long time. The silence between us grew heavy and tight. Then he smiled slowly. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator seeing another predator. You are vengeful, aren't you? Thomas said quietly. I'm efficient, I corrected. Jonathan thinks I'm just a broken wife who'll cry in a corner. He forgets I'm the one who wrote his business plan. Thomas closed my laptop and pushed it gently back toward me. I like you, Olivia, he said. You've got guts. Jonathan always seemed like a peacock to me. All feathers, no flight. But you're a hawk. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my general counsel, he said. He's the best trial lawyer in Atlanta. He'll handle your divorce for free. Consider it an investment in our new partnership. Thank you, I whispered, feeling a wave of relief move through me. And Olivia, he added, his eyes hard. Don't disappoint me. If we do this, we destroy him completely. No mercy. No taking him back when he cries. He won't be crying, I said, remembering Jonathan's smirk when he took my ring. He'll be screaming. Thomas nodded. Good. Now let's get you a hotel that doesn't charge by the hour. You can't plan a war without sleep. That night, I slept in a suite at the St. Regis Atlanta, courtesy of Ashford Enterprises. I took a long bath and scrubbed the motel smell off my skin. When I finally lay down in the cool, clean sheets, I felt something deep inside me shift. For 20 years, I had been the fixer. I covered Jonathan's mistakes. I cleaned up his messes. I made him look good. I was the invisible glue holding everything together. Now, I was going to be the solvent. I was going to dissolve everything he thought he owned. I picked up my burner phone and sent Thomas a one-word text. Ready. 3 days later, the trap was ready. Thomas's lawyer, a calm and deadly man named Nathaniel Brown, had drafted the divorce settlement. It was a masterpiece of legal trickery. On the surface, it looked like total surrender. Jonathan keeps the family home. Jonathan keeps full control of Pierce Ridge. Olivia gets a one-time payment of $500,000. A tiny fraction of what I really deserved. Olivia gives up any future right to alimony. It looked like I was giving up. It looked like I was broken, desperate for cash, and eager to disappear. Jonathan would love it. It fed his ego perfectly. But hidden deep in that 60-page document, in Section 14, Subsection C, Paragraph 4, was the poison pill. If either party is later found to have committed undisclosed criminal activity, fraud, or embezzlement during the marriage, or is convicted of a felony within 24 months of signing, this agreement becomes completely void. All assets, including 100% of company stock and all property, automatically transfer to the non-offending party as punishment. Jonathan never read the fine print. He paid people for that. And his lawyer, Reginald Pierce, was lazy. I knew. I used to approve his bills. Pierce skimmed contracts for the big stuff, the payout, the alimony, not the small legal clause hidden in the boring language. We met Jonathan and Pierce at the lawyer's office. I didn't wear makeup. I wore an old sweater. I kept my head down and stared at the floor. I had to look like a defeated woman. Jonathan walked in like a king. New Italian suit, Expensive cologne, probably a gift from Brittany. Well, look who crawled out of her hole. Jonathan sneered as he sat down. I hope you're ready to sign, Olivia. Brittany and I have wedding invitations to order. Just give me the check, I said in a small, shaky voice. I just want to leave, Jonathan. I can't fight you anymore. Jonathan laughed and glanced at Pierce. See? I told you she'd surrender. She doesn't have the stomach for a real fight. Pierce slid the document toward me. Standard agreement, Olivia, he said. You walk away with $500,000 and a new start. Sign here, here, and here. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled, half acting, half pure adrenaline. What about Ethan? I asked quietly. Ethan stays with me, Jonathan said, leaning back in his chair. He's my vice president now. We're going to build an empire together, without your whining. A sharp pain stabbed my chest, but I swallowed it. Okay, I said softly. Take care of him. Sign the papers, Olivia, Jonathan snapped. I signed my name on the paper that looked like it stripped me of 20 years of blood and sweat. Then Jonathan signed. He signed with a big dramatic flourish, like he was signing an autograph. Done, Pierce said, closing the folder. The money will hit your account tomorrow. Jonathan stood up and buttoned his jacket. He gave me a smug little smile. You know, Olivia, he said, you should thank me. You were always too uptight for this life. Go find yourself a farm. Maybe a nice librarian. That's more your speed. Goodbye, Jonathan, I whispered. As I walked toward the elevator, I heard him laughing with Pierce. That was easier than I thought. She didn't even ask for the beach house. The elevator doors closed, cutting off his voice. I leaned against the wall and exhaled slowly. I had signed. The poison pill was active. Now all I had to do was prove the fraud, and I already had the evidence. I just needed the right stage. And there was no better stage than a wedding. Jonathan and Brittany had already announced the date. 3 weeks away. A rushed wedding, they called it. They wanted to look respectable before the spring gala season. 3 weeks. That was my countdown. I left the office and stepped into Thomas's car. Did he sign? Thomas asked from the back seat. He signed, I said, smiling for real this time. He thinks he bought my silence for $500,000. He just signed away his whole life. Thomas handed me a glass of sparkling water. To the architect, he said. To the demolition, I replied, clinking my glass with his. The next 3 weeks were pure emotional torture. I had to stay in the background while Jonathan and Brittany flaunted their victory all over Atlanta. I rented a small, quiet apartment in the North Side under my maiden name. I spent my days with Thomas's team of forensic accountants, turning everything I had into a solid legal weapon. At night, I tortured myself by looking at social media. Brittany's Instagram was a never-ending stream of luxury. A photo of a new Mercedes convertible. My future hubby spoils me. #blessed, #new beginnings. A photo of my dining room, now covered in cheap-looking gold wallpaper. Out with the old and with the glam. Finally making this house a home. That one hurt. Watching her wipe away my touch from the home I built. My mother was even worse. Margaret posted a photo of herself with Jonathan and Brittany, all of them smiling with champagne in hand. The caption, finally, a family that knows how to enjoy life. So proud of my beautiful daughter Brittany and my wonderful son-in-law Jonathan. True love always wins. True love. She had traded her eldest daughter for a place at a fancy dinner table. And Ethan didn't post much. But I still saw the alerts from a secondary account Jonathan hadn't noticed. The one I still quietly monitored. Nobleman's Liquor, $400. Capital Nightclub, $10,000. Bail bonds, $500. My son was free-falling. Jonathan wasn't raising him. He was feeding his worst impulses. I wanted to rush in and rescue him. But Thomas stopped me. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, Olivia, he said gently. He chose his side. Let him see what that side really looks like when the lights go out. I knew he was right, but it felt like cutting off a limb. Meanwhile, the company was rotting from inside. My people on the inside, Emily in accounting and Ryan in project management, sent me daily updates. Jonathan hasn't stayed past 2 p.m. in weeks, Emily wrote. He's letting Brittany handle the rebrand. She wants the logo to be pink and gold. For a commercial real estate firm. Pink and gold Olivia. Contractors are about to walk from the Highland site, Ryan said. Jonathan told them the check is in the mail. It's not. He used the funds to pay for the wedding venue. Let it burn, I told them. Just keep records. Save every email where he tells you to delay payments. The wedding was set for the St. Regis Grand Ballroom, the most expensive venue in the city. Brittany had invited 300 guests, investors, politicians, local celebrities. They wanted to show Atlanta they were the new power couple. They wanted an audience. Good. You want a show? I thought, holding the invitation Emily got for me. I'll give you a show. 2 days before the wedding, I got an unexpected gift. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Olivia, it's Derek. Derek. Brittany's ex-husband. The mechanic she used up and threw away. Derek, I said, surprised. How are you? I'm okay, he said. Listen, I heard what they did to you. It's disgusting. I have something you need. His voice dropped. When Brittany left me, she left a box of papers in the garage, he said. I was going to burn them, but I looked through them last night. Olivia, she has credit cards in your name from 3 years ago. What? She opened them while she was living with you. She took the mail, maxed the cards, then hid the statements. I found letters from collection agencies. And I found a letter from Jonathan. From Jonathan? I asked. Yeah. He paid one of the cards off. The letter says, I covered this one, but you need to be more careful. If Olivia sees this on her credit report, we're both dead. Stick to the plan. 2 more years and we take it all. 2 more years. The timeline matched perfectly. Jonathan and Brittany were stealing my identity and my money while I was housing her and giving her a job. Derek, I said, voice shaking. Can you Brittany me that box? I'm on my way, he replied. When Derek handed me the box, I felt everything lock into place. This wasn't just fraud. It was a deliberate, calculated conspiracy. I read Jonathan's handwritten letter again. 2 more years and we take it all. I put the letter in my safe. Thank you, Derek, I said. Give them hell, Olivia, he said with a grim smile. Oh, I plan to, I answered. I plan to give them all of it. The day before the wedding, I took a risk. I went to see Ethan. I knew I shouldn't. Thomas advised me not to, but I was a mother first and an angry ex-wife second. I needed to give him one last chance to step off that sinking ship. I waited outside his new penthouse, the one bought with company money. At 11 a.m., Ethan stumbled out, clearly hungover. He was wearing designer sunglasses and a sweatshirt that cost more than my first car. Ethan, I called. He jumped and turned. When he saw me, his face hardened. Mom, what are you doing here? He snapped. Are you stalking me now? I'm not stalking you, I said. I'm trying to save you. I don't need saving, he shot back, heading toward his Porsche. I'm doing great. Dad just put me in charge of the Southern Region portfolio. Ethan, listen to me, I said, stepping in front of him. Your father is lying to you. The company is broke. He's stealing money to fund this life. He's using you as a shield. When the feds come, and they are coming, your name is on those documents. Ethan laughed. The sound was ugly and empty. You're just jealous, he said. You're jealous because Dad is winning and you're nothing. You're probably living in some dump, right? Dad told me. I'm living in reality, I said, my voice urgent. Ethan, please don't go to the wedding tomorrow. Say you're sick. Go to a friend's place. Just don't stand next to him when it all happens. When what happens? He challenged. You're going to crash the wedding? Make a scene? God, you're pathetic, Mom. Dad said you'd try to ruin it. He called me pathetic. Anger surged, but I held it down. Ethan, look at me, I said. I raised you. I know you. You are not this person. You are kind. You are smart. You are not a thief. I'm not a thief, he shouted, his face turning red. I'm a businessman. Like Dad. Your father is a fraud, I yelled back. And Brittany is a parasite. If you stay with them, You will go down with them. Ethan glared at me, then pulled out his phone. I'm calling security, he said. Get away from me. He got into his car and revved the engine. As he sped out of the garage, he rolled down the window. Don't come tomorrow, Mom, he shouted. Nobody wants you there. You're the past. I watched him drive away. My heart broke again. But this time the brake felt cleaner. I had tried. I had reached out. He slapped my hand away. He was on his own now. I drove back to my apartment. Thomas was there, waiting with the last details. How did it go? He asked, though he already knew from my face. He's gone, I said flatly. Completely brainwashed. Then he'll learn the hard way, Thomas replied. Are you ready for tomorrow? We have the projector codes. The police are prepared. Inspector Miller will be in the lobby at 8 p.m. Yes, I said. Thomas handed me a garment bag. Then you'll need this. I unzipped it. Inside was a tuxedo. Not a dress for a desperate ex-wife. A sleek custom black tux. Yves Saint Laurent. Strong, sharp, serious. Put on your armor, Olivia, Thomas said. Tomorrow you are not the victim. You are the executioner. I ran my hand over the fabric. It was cool and smooth. Thank you, Thomas, I said. Get some rest, he told me. It's going to be a long night. I didn't rest. I sat by the window, watching the city lights. I thought of Jonathan and Brittany, probably rehearsing vows and laughing about how they'd gotten away with everything. 2 more years and we take it all. They weren't getting 2 years. They weren't getting 2 days. Tomorrow, the new Mr. and Mrs. Pierce would get a very different kind of reception. The wedding day arrived, gray and cloudy, the perfect Atlanta weather for a funeral. I spent the morning going over the presentation. Every slide was timed perfectly. It would start right after the cheesy love story video Brittany had paid $20,000 to have made. At 6 p.m., guests started arriving at the St. Regis. I watched the live stream from a hidden camera Thomas had arranged. He owned part of the hotel, so getting access was easy. The ballroom was disgustingly extravagant. Crystals and pink roses everywhere. Thousands of them. There was even an ice sculpture of Jonathan and Brittany twisted together. I watched my mother, Margaret, greeting guests in a champagne-colored dress that was too young for her. She was glowing like she'd just won the jackpot. Yes, isn't it wonderful? I heard her tell a confused cousin. They're soulmates. Poor Olivia just couldn't handle Jonathan's success. She needs some time alone. I saw Jonathan. He looked nervous but proud. He was shaking hands, patting people on the back, playing the role of generous king. Then Brittany walked in. She wore a custom Vera Wang gown and diamonds from head to toe. Diamonds my company paid for. She was beautiful. I had to admit that. Beautiful and rotten. The ceremony started. I listened to them say their vows. I promise to be your partner in all things, Jonathan said, staring into Brittany's eyes. I promise to support your dreams and spend my life making you happy, Brittany replied sweetly. I sat upstairs in a hotel suite, drinking black coffee. Lies, I whispered. Every word. Are we ready? Thomas asked, checking the time. The signal is live, the tech confirmed. As soon as you say go, we take over the feed. Not yet, I said. Wait for the toasts. Wait until everyone's seated and staring at the screens. The reception started. Champagne flowed. Jonathan stood to speak. I want to thank everyone for being here, he boomed, holding Brittany's hand. It's been a long journey. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions to find your true destiny. The crowd clapped politely. Some looked uncomfortable. Everyone knew the scandal, but as long as the drinks were free, they were willing to look the other way. And to my new wife, Jonathan continued. Brittany, you are my muse, my rock, my everything. My phone buzzed. It was the signal. Now, I said. Downstairs, the lights dimmed for the romantic video. Soft music started playing. Photos of Jonathan and Brittany kissing on beaches, on yachts in Paris. All flashed across the giant screens. Look outside. I stood, smoothed my tux, and left the suite. Thomas walked beside me. Showtime, he said. In the elevator, I watched the numbers drop, 10, 9, 8. My heart wasn't racing. It was slow and heavy, like a drum before battle. When the doors opened, Inspector Miller and 2 officers were waiting. "Mrs. Bennett?" he asked. "Yes. We have the warrant. We're ready when you are." "Give me 5 minutes," I said. "I want them to see it before you put on the cuffs." "Understood," he replied. I walked toward the ballroom doors. The security guards Jonathan hired stepped forward. "Ma'am, this is a private event." Thomas stepped up. "And I own the building," he said. "Move aside, unless you're looking for a new job tomorrow." They hesitated, recognized him, and backed off. I pushed open the doors. Inside, the music was swelling. On the screen, Jonathan and Brittany were kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower. Then the screen flickered. The music cut out with a harsh screech. The entire room went silent. On the big screens, the romantic footage faded and was replaced by a plain credit card statement. Name Brittany Bennett. Address, 124 Oak Street, my house. Purchase, Tiffany & Co. diamond ring, $25,000. Paid by, Pierce Ridge corporate account. A low murmur moved through the crowd. "What is that?" someone asked. "Jonathan, fix it," Brittany hissed. "Turn it off. Cut the feed." Jonathan shouted at the AV booth. "Turn it off now." But the AV tech was ours. He didn't cut anything. He turned up the volume. My pre-recorded voice filled the ballroom. "Hello, Jonathan. Hello, Brittany. You wanted a family moment. You wanted everyone to see your big day. So let's show them what your happiness is really built on." Heads turned, not to the screen, but toward the back of the room. The whole ballroom fell completely silent as 300 people turned and stared at me. I walked straight down the center aisle, my heels clicking on the floor. My black tux cut through the pink decor like a shadow through cotton candy. Jonathan froze at the head table. His face went pale. Brittany clutched her napkin to her chest, mouth wide open. Margaret looked like she might collapse. "Olivia," Jonathan whispered into the mic, his voice shaking. "What are you doing?" I stopped in the middle of the dance floor, directly in front of them. "I'm here to give a toast," I said clearly. I didn't need a microphone. I lifted the remote and pressed it. The screen changed again. This time it showed the email chain between Jonathan and the private investigator. "Jonathan, look harder or make something up. I can't afford to give her half." The crowd gasped. I saw investors leaning in, whispering urgently. Men who had bet millions on Jonathan were realizing what kind of man he really was. "Turn it off," Jonathan screamed, rushing toward the AV booth. "Security! Get her out of here!" "Sit down, Jonathan," Thomas called from near the doors. "Unless you want to add assault to your list of charges." Jonathan froze. He saw Thomas. He saw the police waiting near the exit. "This is fake," Brittany screeched, mascara running. "She hacked everything. She's insane. Crazy," I said calmly. I pressed the button again. Now the Beltline loan documents appeared. Fake leases. My forged signature. "Is this crazy, Brittany?" I asked. "Is forging documents crazy? Is lying to banks crazy? Because that's prison time. And guess whose name is on the shell company that received the stolen money?" I clicked again. Orion Holdings Group. Owner, Brittany Bennett. I pointed straight at her. "You're not just a mistress," I said. "You're a money mule. Jonathan used you to launder $3 million. Did he tell you that? Did he tell you when the IRS comes, they're coming for your name too?" Brittany stared at Jonathan, eyes full of fear. "Jonathan, you said it was tax planning," she shouted. "You said it was legal." "Shut up, Brittany," Jonathan growled. "Oh, don't stop him," I said lightly. "Let him talk. Let him explain what he really thinks of our dear mother." Click. A new email appeared. Subject: The Old Lady. "Jonathan, just send Margaret another consulting payment from the fund. The old lady is greedy. As long as we pay for her condo, she'll keep Olivia blind. She'd sell her own daughter for a remodeling budget." Margaret made a strange choking noise. She stood, hands shaking so badly she knocked over her champagne. "Jonathan," she whispered, "you called me that? After everything I did? I betrayed my own daughter for you. And what did you get, Mom?" I asked softly. A seat at a wedding that's now a crime scene. Jonathan looked around, panicked. He could see it, the entire room turning against him. Investors leaving. Politicians whispering. Waiters frozen in place. You signed the agreement, he shouted at me. You signed it. You gave up everything. You can't touch the company. Section 14. I said. The poison pill. You commit a felony, the agreement is void, and everything comes back to me. The house, the company, the assets. All of it. Jonathan's legs almost gave out. He dropped into his chair. And Ethan, I said, turning to my son, who sat at the end of the table, white as a ghost. Ethan stared at the screen, where his own texts now showed. VP? Seriously? Okay, I'm in. You wanted to be a businessman, Ethan? I said gently. Here's your first lesson. Choose your partners carefully. I pressed the button one last time. Now a video played, security footage from the company garage. Jonathan and Brittany arguing. Jonathan's voice came through clearly. Once we get the Ashford money, we drop the kid. Ethan is dead weight. We leave him with the tax fault and move to Monaco. He's too stupid to notice. The ballroom went dead quiet. Ethan slowly stood up. He looked at his father. The hero worship in his eyes was gone, replaced by something shattered. Dad, Ethan whispered. You were going to leave me behind? Jay, no, I was stressed, it was a joke, Jonathan stammered. You called me stupid, Ethan said, voice breaking. You said I was dead weight. Ethan, sit down, Jonathan snapped. Don't listen to her. Ethan didn't sit. He picked up his champagne glass and threw it in Jonathan's face. I hate you, he screamed. I hate you. The room exploded into chaos. Margaret sobbed. Brittany was hyperventilating. Jonathan, drenched and shaking, stared around like a trapped animal. I lowered the remote. The show was over. I nodded toward Inspector Miller. The police stepped fully into the light. Guests moved aside like the Red Sea. Jonathan Pierce. The inspector said loudly. You're under arrest for bank fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. Brittany Bennett, he continued. You're under arrest for conspiracy and money laundering. No, Brittany shrieked as they grabbed her. I didn't know. I'm just the fiancé. He made me do it. Tell it to the judge, the officer replied, locking the cuffs. Jonathan didn't yell. He just glared at me. As they cuffed him, he leaned in as far as he could. You ruined everything, he spat. You bitter, vengeful witch. I stepped close until I could smell his fear. I didn't ruin anything, Jonathan, I said calmly. I just turned on the lights. You're the cockroach. They dragged him away. The room remained silent except for Margaret's sobs. I glanced at the untouched cake, the perfect flowers, the ruined fantasy. Then I turned to Thomas. I think I'm done here, I said. Brilliant, Thomas replied, offering me his arm. Absolutely brilliant. We walked out. I didn't look back at my crying mother or my devastated son. Not yet. They had chosen their side. Tonight they could live with it. The days after the wedding were a complete media storm. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution headline read, I do not. Real estate mogul arrested at the altar. I didn't give interviews. I let the documents do the talking. 3 days later, I went back to my house. The police had finished with it. It felt strange walking into rooms I had designed. Brittany's things were everywhere. Loud clothes, cheap magazines, half-empty wine glasses. I called a cleaning crew. Throw everything out. I told them. If it's not mine, it goes. Burn the sheets. Change the mattresses. I wanted every trace of her out of my life. Jonathan was denied bail. The judge called him a flight risk thanks to the Monaco video. He was sent to a federal facility in Georgia, trading his expensive suits for an orange jumpsuit. Brittany got bail, paid by my mother, who emptied her retirement to do it. But Brittany wasn't really free. She was facing 5 to 10 years. The internet called her the gold-digging jailbird. Her mugshot was everywhere. A week later, my mother came to see me. She looked worn down, older, small, fragile. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen. She stood on my porch shaking. Olivia. Her voice cracked. Margaret, I said, blocking the doorway. Don't call me Mom. Can I come in? It's freezing. You can say what you need to say from there. She shivered. Olivia, please be reasonable. Brittany is terrified. She's just a girl. She didn't know what she was doing. Jonathan manipulated her. You can't let her go to prison. She's your sister. Brittany is 40, I said coldly. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew she was sleeping with my husband. She knew she was spending my money. She signed everything. She's your sister. Margaret screamed, anger kicking in. You can't let her go to prison. Tell the DA it was a misunderstanding. Drop the charges. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I replied. It was a felony. If you do this, Margaret hissed, you're no daughter of mine. You're destroying this family. I laughed light and free. You destroyed this family 20 years ago, I said. When you named Brittany the princess and me the servant. You're not here to apologize. You're here because you want me to clean up one last mess. You want me to sacrifice myself again so Brittany can walk free. She's delicate, right? She is delicate, Margaret snapped. No, I said. She's a criminal. And you? You're an accomplice. I saw the checks Jonathan gave you. Consulting fees. You took money to help them trick me. Margaret went pale. I'm not pressing charges against you, I said. Not because I love you. I don't know if I ever truly did, but because I don't want the shame of my own mother's mugshot online. But you are dead to me. Don't call me. Don't come here. If you need money, ask Brittany. I paused. Oh wait, I added. She's broke. Then I closed the door. On the security camera, I watched her pound the door, scream my name, and finally sag and walk away. It hurt. Of course it hurt. But it felt like pulling out a splinter. Sharp pain. Then relief. Then there was Ethan. He didn't call. He didn't come over. I knew he was sleeping on a friend's couch. The penthouse and the Porsche were gone. Seized. I waited. He had to come on his own. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my office. He looked awful. He'd lost weight. No fancy clothes this time, just old jeans and a t-shirt. No shades. No cocky swagger. Mom, he asked quietly from the doorway. I looked up from my desk. Hello, Ethan, I said. He came in and sat down across from me. He stared at his hands. I'm sorry, he whispered. I was stupid. He made me feel important. He told me it was better than college, that you were holding me back. And you believed him. I said gently but firmly, because that was easier than doing the hard work. Yes, he admitted, tears dropping on his jeans. I saw the video. He called me dead weight. He was going to leave me behind. I have nothing, Mom. They took everything. I need help. I looked at my son. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to rescue him like always. But I was the architect now. You can't build something strong on a cracked foundation. I love you, Ethan, I said. But I'm not giving you money. He looked up shocked. Then where am I supposed to live? He asked. I don't know, I said calmly. You'll have to figure that out. Mom, please. This is the deal, I said, sliding 2 forms to him. This is a student loan application. And this is a job application, mailroom clerk at Phoenix Realty. Minimum wage. You'll start from the bottom. You'll finish your degree at night. The mailroom, he asked, stunned. Take it or leave it, I said. If you want to be a man, Ethan, you earn it. Your father gave you things to own you. I'm giving you nothing so you can own yourself. He looked between me and the papers. He saw I wasn't going to change my mind. Slowly, he picked up the pen. Okay, he said quietly. I'll take the job. Good, I said. Take the forms to Emily in HR. She'll get you an ID badge. Don't be late. He stood up and looked at me. Really looked at me, for the first time in years. You're kind of scary, Mom, he said, a tiny smile appearing. I know, I said, smiling back. Now go to work. The trial was short. The evidence was overwhelming. Jonathan pled guilty to avoid 20 years. He got 8 years in federal prison plus restitution. He looked old and hollow in the courtroom. He never looked my way. Brittany took a plea deal, 3 years for fraud. She sobbed as the judge spoke. She turned to Margaret and screamed, "Mom, do something." But there was nothing Margaret could do. She was living in a small apartment on Social Security, no more consulting checks, no more luxury. I sat in the back row in a black suit and watched. I didn't feel joy. I felt balance. The books were finally corrected. Epilogue. 1 year later, I was in my office on the 40th floor, looking out over the city. The sign behind me read Phoenix Realty, in sleek silver and blue. No pink. No gold. The company was thriving. We had just closed the Beltline deal with Thomas. It was going to be a mixed-use project. Luxury condos, yes, but also affordable housing and a community center. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. "Hey Mom, just finished my economics final. Pretty sure I aced it. Also, our mailroom team improved sorting efficiency by 15% this week. Do I get a raise?" I smiled. "Don't push it. But dinner is on me tonight at 7, I replied. Ethan was working hard. He was tired. He was broke. He was humble. And I had never been more proud. He was finally becoming the man I always knew he could be. Not the spoiled version his father tried to turn him into. There was a knock at my office door. "Come in," I called. Thomas walked in holding a bottle of champagne. "Happy anniversary," he said. "Anniversary of what?" I asked, amused. "The day you burned down the circus," he said. "It feels like a lifetime ago," I replied, taking the glass he poured. "You know," Thomas said, leaning on my desk, "Jonathan wrote me from prison. Asked if I wanted to buy his shares in some of the old shell companies. Says he needs commissary money." "And what did you tell him?" I asked. "I told him," Thomas said with a grin. "I only do business with the CEO. And the CEO is busy building an empire." We clinked our glasses. I looked back at the skyline. I had lost a husband. I had lost a sister. I had lost a mother. But I had found myself. I was no longer the scapegoat. I was no longer the fixer. I was no longer the invisible wife. I was Olivia Bennett, the architect. And my life finally belonged to me. Thank you for listening to my story. It hasn't been easy to relive everything, but if my journey helps even one person stand up to toxic people in their life, then it's worth it. Family is not always blood. Family is the people who respect you, who value you, who stand beside you when the storm hits. If you're holding on to someone just because they're family, but they keep hurting you, let them go. You are strong enough to build something new. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more justice served, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member? How did you find the strength? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and never let anyone else hold the keys to your castle. I'm really glad you're here, and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Let's see how many of us are out there. Write in the comments which city you're watching from, and what time it is right now. I'm so curious to see where all you amazing people are tuning in from. I share new life stories with you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.